Today's episode is a little bit different. I'm going to interview myself because I realized I've never been on Why Do Pets Matter talking about why pets matter to me. So let's see what I have to say about how I got involved with Why Do Pets Matter and why pets matter to me. Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. Welcome to my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict. Hi everyone, Deborah Hamilton. Today's Why Do Pets Matter is going to be a little bit different because I have realized after 10,000 downloads, and thank you so much, I'm so grateful. I've never had a Why Do Pets Matter that discusses why pets matter to me and why I started this podcast to begin with. So here I am today, starting out this year, discussing with so many luminaries in the pets mattering fields of veterinary medicine, of law, of training, of rescue, of animal welfare, everything that has to do with an animal, just ownership, just the love of an animal, just people in service to people with animals. Before I start going down that wonderful educational road again this year, I thought, hey, why don't I do a Why Do Pets Matter podcast on why pets matter to me? I'm Deborah Hamilton. I'm an attorney who has decided to help resolve conflicts over animals in a different way. At the beginning, I thought I would just do mediation and help mediate conflicts. However, I found out early that in fact, conflicts sometimes need a little assistance to get to the point of mediation or to enable one party to actively listen to another in a very supportive way. So I'm going to start at the beginning and tell you why pets matter to me. And then I'll get into what I do in service to animals, which is the gist of what Why Do Pets Matter podcast means to you. And all the people who have been so gracious to be my guests over the last 5 years. Maybe less. I think Why Do Pets Matter came out after 2021. I'll have to go check. But without further ado, I will start with telling you why pets matter to me. Well, I had a little German Schnauzer when I was 5 years old, who I loved, Kelly. She was the best dog in the entire universe and probably should have chewed on me a lot more than she did because I was 5 and she was a great dog and would let me do almost anything to her. And then came Treb, which started my love affair with Irish setters. She came from California and was an Irish setter who was rescued from a shelter. And she started the absolute love affair that I have with Irish setters. I have dipped my toe into different breeds, including standard long-haired dachshunds, which I love, as well as now having my first English Cocker Spaniel. She's a roan and tan who we love and who finished easily. I show dogs, I breed dogs, I rescue dogs. I have been in every position known to man in a number of breed clubs and with the AKC. So I've been in the area of dogs throughout my life. And when I decided to open my own practice, I thought that I would be in service to dogs and to people with dogs or cats or birds or horses by helping them litigate. But I realized early on that when I started this in 2010, that pets are property. And so their ability to be seen as so valuable to their owners was not yet getting into the legal sphere. They were still property. So emotional distress and personal loss of a pet cannot be compensated for. You can be compensated for their value, however that is defined. It is never defined enough, I can tell you. Or you can recover maybe some veterinary fees and things like that. But they never are thought of as compensation for how much they mean to you, why they matter to you. And so during my sojourn into litigation, which I was very good at, I realized I wasn't helping anyone when I litigated. And most of all, I wasn't helping the pet. And so I decided to become a better negotiator, a better listener, a better facilitator for people to, instead of focus on being right, I'm right, you're wrong, getting it right for the animal. Because most of the litigations that I participated in when I first started, everyone wanted what was best for the animal. They just defined it differently. And if I could stop and have them recognize that everyone wants what's best for the animal, and let's define it together and see where we have common ground, instead of what we usually do in litigation, really accentuate the negative part of where we are, it might be better for the animal in the long run. In divorce, landlord-tenant, breeder owner handler contracts, which I can tell you are almost non-existent or written by someone other than an attorney. I'm trying to work through that as well. Trusts and estates, neighbors with barking dogs. There are so many areas in which conflicts can arise for a pet and a pet owner, and yet there is no real instrument by which they can seek retribution or compensation for the loss of a pet in the value that they hold that pet at, which is why I started Hamilton Law and Mediation, because it helps people either through conflict coaching, through negotiation, through mediation, through collaborative practice, to find a way forward that always keeps focused on what's in the best interests of the pet. It stops the ego, the blame game. It gets you out of your amygdala and back into your prefrontal cortex, because it is so important to be able to be grounded when you're having these conversations about your pets. I'm telling you, when people are angry about pets, I put up a video probably when I first started in 2011 or 12 that talked about the 3 things you should do if your neighbor rings the doorbell and says your dog is barking, or you want to go ring the doorbell and say your dog is barking. The 3 things were simple, but it isn't simple when someone is complaining about your dog or when you're being annoyed by your neighbor's dog, which is stop, drop, and roll. Stop talking and listen, drop the need to be right, and let what's being said roll off your back. So I suggested in that YouTube video that you ring the doorbell when you're not mad, ask your neighbor to go somewhere neutral to have a conversation, not on the front stoop where it just is such a us or them kind of conversation. Have a cup of coffee at a coffee shop. And then start the conversation by saying, what can we do together to make sure that the dog gets out, has fun, whatever, and also isn't in a position to disrupt my sleep or disrupt my children's sleep? What can we do together to make sure this works for all of us, but especially for your animal? So what I did was I created this practice that a number of people think simply mediates conflicts between people over animals, which it does. And it does so much more because people have not yet associated mediation with conflicts over animals, except maybe in divorce. Yet mediation is the best way to alleviate, lessen, soften that disagreement you're having with your neighbor with a barking dog, with your veterinarian over a disagreement for care, with your groomer, with your kennel, with the dog park participants. If people are given the opportunity to sit down with a neutral and have a conversation, it's fabulous. It really creates a better understanding of where all the parties are coming from and how they all want basically the same thing for all the dogs to be safe, to be respected, or the cats, or the birds, or the horses, to be safe and be respected. However, they can't hear another person's point of view because they don't feel as if their point of view has been heard, respected, and understood. So in my practice, that's what I provide. I might provide it one-on-one as a conflict coach, understanding where you're coming from, appreciating how you feel, having you take responsibility for your part in the disagreement, as well as really outlining what the responsibility was of the other party in this disagreement, and framing the conversation in a way that enables everyone to move off of ego and the need to be right onto what is going to really move us forward to retain a relationship if that's what we want to do, or to make sure this animal is cared for in the best of ways. So my practice isn't limited to divorce. It is so broad-based. I have helped people in conflict with the AKC. I have helped people in conflict with their neighbors, with their breeders, with their owners who they have contracts with. It is so important that if you write a contract, you have that contract reviewed by an attorney. You can send it to me and I can review it, and then I can find an attorney in your state that will work with me to make sure that that contract is enforceable in your state and meets the needs you want. I've read so many Chinese menu, and I mean that in the best way, one from column A, one from column B, one from column C. And breeders don't even realize that those terms in the contract may not be enforceable in their state, or it might not protect what they really want to protect. So as a mediator, as a conflict coach, as an integrative lawyer, I help people write contracts and engage in conversation that is inclusive, not exclusive, is appreciative and acknowledging, not adversarial. If you're buying a puppy, or if you are spending time showing your dog, you want to make sure that as the breeder, everyone understands the terms under which they're buying this dog. As the buyer, you really want to understand the terms in this contract that you may not understand. You want to feel free to ask. You want to really make sure you understand what you're taking on and the cost of what you're taking on, so that there's little misunderstanding later on. There's always room for misunderstanding because everybody understands things differently. Um, Especially if the only communication you're doing is through text. That's a whole nother story that I'll get into in a little bit. However, as a conflict coach and consultant, I help owners find breeders who will enable them to have an open discussion without any adversarial connotations within. I help breeders write contracts that have less adversarial nature and more accountability. And the reason I write contracts this way now is because when you go to court, you can have an airtight contract that an attorney has written. And now that 7 states have created a different level of propertyship, so to speak, personal propertyship of pets, the best interests of the pets are going to be taken into account when thinking about the terms of a contract you've signed. So if you're the breeder and you haven't seen this dog in 4 years and you want to breed it and the pet owners say, no, we don't want to do this anymore, the way you write your contract is so important to enable the court to understand you supported these people, you've kept in touch with these people absolutely understood what the responsibilities were, and now they're reneging on the contract terms. Otherwise, a court may look at the situation, you haven't talked to the owners, you haven't kept in touch, and now you want to breed this dog because that's what it says in the contract. Unfortunately, it is come to pass that breeders aren't necessarily seen in a positive light. And so unable to create this responsibility by an owner to enable you to have certain access to a dog, you need to make sure that you keep in touch with the owners. And as owners, you need to keep in touch with your breeder to make sure that if anything comes up with your pet, you call them and ask them first, because you really want to know if this is something that you should worry about or it's something that's normal to their breed. I can tell you that I have so many people coming to me with contracts that really don't fit the bill, with terms that they didn't understand when they signed them. So it's imperative and important that when you have these conversations and go over the terms of a purchase for a puppy, that in fact you make sure that you, the breeder, have a clear contract that is collaborative, that is acknowledging and appreciating the wonderful home that these people are providing for your pet and the responsibilities they've taken on to work with you, whatever you have retained, either breeding rights or collection rights or showing rights, whatever it is, that you've made it clear that they've absolutely appreciated, acknowledged they are going to follow the directives of the contract so that you can go forward in the future. If you're the owner, you have to really ask questions, be curious, know what this means. I know it is really hard to leave a pet behind when you meet it, because some of the terms are confusing. Some of the terms, the breeder might say, well, we may never do that. And yet, if it's in the contract, they can do that. So in my office, how I'm in service to people is I provide that opportunity to have a less than adversarial conversation. I help people have go-to language. So if you're a veterinarian or a kennel person or a groomer and a client gets to be a little upset, I give you the language to use to diffuse the conflict, to appreciate and acknowledge where they're coming from, and encourage you to take the time to let everyone calm down before you answer. I was teaching classes during 2020, 2021, and a lot of the attendees would say to me, what do you mean I don't need to answer them right away? I said, you know, in most cases, the answer shouldn't be given right away. You should do some thinking about what the answer should be. And most people, I won't say all people, but most people will not be adverse to being looped, and I'll explain that in a minute, appreciated and acknowledged for their point of view, and asked for permission to do a little research and get back to them later. So when we are working in a conflict coach consultant situation with Hamilton Law and Mediation, I help one party actively listen. What does that mean? Well, if you actively listen, you're hearing what I'm saying. So what I just said is, we appreciate and acknowledge, we loop, And we ask for time to do a little research before we answer the question. Did I get that right? Really important, because whenever a conflict arises, when clients call me, most of the time, they feel very unheard. They feel as if they had no agency in the conversation, especially about a pet, whether it's the groomer, the kennel, the breeder, the veterinarian. And that's what starts the downward spiral of the relationship. So if in fact you can listen with an open mind and stop talking. Remember, I said stop, drop, and roll earlier. So part of what I use in my mediation practice, but also what I help people do as a consultant or as a coach, is learning how to stop talking and listen. Then dropping the need to be right, which I know from experience is the most difficult thing for me to do. However, dropping the need to be right doesn't make you weak or wrong. It simply gives you the opportunity, if you stop and listen, to gain more information before you have a conversation moving forward. So if you stop talking and listen and you drop the need to be right, as you're listening, you're going to hear things. And instead of listening for the things that you disagree about, listen for the things that you also agree about. And as I said at the beginning, what I found and why I shifted my practice from litigation to alternative dispute resolution, mediation, collaboration, conflict coaching, conflict consultation, is because most of the time the conflicts arise because the parties don't share what they believe in that is similar. They only share what they are angry about and what they don't share in common as an outcome. The last piece of stop, drop, and roll is roll. We all know that people have really bad days, and you might never have met this person before, but if, say, you're a veterinarian in an emergency clinic, you are never meeting anyone on their best day because, well, their pet's in distress. That's why they're in an emergency hospital. It's part of the task you take on as an emergency veterinarian to learn how to stop, drop, and roll, because that person doesn't have the ability to filter at that moment while their pet is ill. Some do, most don't. And so as the veterinarian, please God, don't take it personally. Rather, listen, appreciate, and acknowledge how they feel. Give them information. This is what we're going to do. We're going to take the dog in the back. We're going to check its vitals. We're going to be out to see you. It'll probably take 15 minutes. Is that okay? Check in. You know, if the dog or a cat or a bird or horse are an emergency and suffering, well, then being able to have someone at the front desk give that same information, maybe not from the doctor, but from the front desk point of view in a way that is collaborative and compassionate and empathetic, the amount of conflicts and the amount of negative reviews you're going to get on social media are going to drop incredibly, because you are giving people at least peace of mind that you acknowledge that they're upset, that their pet is very ill, and that you are going to do your best to save their pet, and you're going to keep them informed. When I teach my classes diffusing conflict to veterinarians and kennels and groomers and breeders, I often start with the term transparency. Because the thing that we are least likely to do and is so necessary when we're having these conversations is to be transparent. Acknowledge what it is that's important to the pet owner, as well as the pet owner acknowledging what is so important to the veterinarian, the groomer, or the kennel person. as you're coming into this conversation, be transparent. So as a pet owner, say, I am recognizing that I am an emotional wreck right now and I'm not myself. I'd really appreciate it if you give me more information than less, and that you keep me abreast of what's going on. I function better if you tell me more instead of less. As a veterinarian, as the front desk people in a veterinary clinic, emergency clinic, having people know what it is that they can expect to happen is gold, because they're coming in a situation where they can't even breathe most of the time because a beloved family member is not doing well. If you're in a regular veterinary clinic, if you could do me a favor, as my Why Do Pets Matter, take down the post that says, we do not appreciate disrespectful clients. If you want to create disrespectful clients, leave that sign up. It's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. What you should say is, we so appreciate clients who are our partners, who work with us, who ask us for what they need so that we can fulfill their needs in a way that works for all of us. Because that's basically what you're saying. It's just saying it in the glass is half full way, as opposed to the glass is half empty way. So to wrap this up, I am so grateful that I've taken the time. I just didn't realize that I never talked about why pets matter to me. I always talked about why pets mattered to my guests. And today's episode is covering what I do and how I do it, because of how much pets and their owners and their service providers mean to me. That relationship is so important, and the respect for that relationship is so important. I never talk about kumbaya, everybody holding hands, everybody. There is absolutely no time when a conflict involves a pet that kumbaya is going to be part of the conversation. I wish it could be. I wish I could at least help people take a breath, ground themselves, and understand that this is something that is the party who is aggravated's issue, as opposed to my issue. And I'm going to let them own it. I'm going to let them deal with it, but I'm not going to exacerbate it by pointing it out to them and telling them, I'm not going to speak to you if you talk to me that way. That will absolutely escalate a situation. So if you're a breeder, you're a vet, you're a kennel operator, you're an owner, if someone says something like that to you, say, you're right. This is not necessarily the best of times for us to talk to each other. And I really want to hear more. You've given me a lot to think about. And so may I call you tomorrow after I've got a little more information, and we can talk privately about what's going on here. It would make such a big difference. So as I promised, I'm going to tell you what looping is, because this is such an important part of my consultation practice, both using it for my clients and teaching my clients how to use it for themselves. So when someone says something to you and you want to respond in the worst way, we always are reactive and defensive. It is totally human nature. If you want, take a minute and say, Deborah told me to reflect back what they said so that they can clarify, correct, or change what they've said, because they might not even know how you receive the information. We all receive information based on our experiences, our biases. I actually went to a conference once and said, hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton, and I'm a breeder of Irish setters. How many of you think I'm your worst nightmare? And many who are listening to this podcast might say, yep, she's my nightmare, because I'm an attorney, I'm a breeder, and I'm opinionated, and I'm just going to come at this in a way that's going to be so difficult. Well, if I can help you diffuse that bias that you bring into that room, that feeling of, this is how this kind of person treated me last time, I would be doing a great service via this podcast and via everyone who's listening to it. So what you want to do is you want to loop back what they say. So what I've heard you say, Deborah, is that you're a breeder, and that you're a lawyer, and that you really help people work on diffusing conflict. Would that be right? Yeah, that's right. And you really give people the information they may need to diffuse it on their own as well, if they can't get the other party to a mediated setting. Yes, that's what I do. And what you do always keeps top of mind what's in the best interest of the pet, which is what everyone wants who's sitting at the table. Yeah, that's what I do. That's exactly what I do. I don't just do divorces or veterinary client issues or breeder issues or AKC issues or contract issues. I help people who are in conflict over animals, whether it's the parrot cursing at you when you go by, the horse who's running through your field. I work with everyone, because being able to address social media in a way that shuts it down and doesn't continue the abuse, that I help people shut down difficult conversations, not because they're shutting them down and getting rid of them. I mean, I have so many people say, I just fire those toxic people. And I said, the problem is you take yourself with you when you fire the toxic person. So you're not solving the problem. So in wrapping up, I just want to say this has been my greatest pleasure to bring this podcast to you every week, sometimes twice a week at the beginning, because I was just so excited to help people understand why pets matter and what everyone is doing in their best efforts and ability to help life with your pet be happy and healthy and conflict-free. So until next time, I really appreciate you being here, listening to this individual podcast with no speaker, understanding why pets matter to me, what I do in service to pets, because helping their owners and their caregivers and their service providers have a more peaceful life is my mission in life. And so until next time, this is Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, and of course, this wonderful Why Do Pets Matter podcast. As an end note, I will say that you can reach me at hamiltonlawmediation.com. You could also join our MAP community, because beside conflict resolution, I help people make plans for the care of their pet long-term, short-term. I am not a trust and estate attorney, and I do not play one on TV. However, I am the trust and estate attorney's best friend and the pet owner's best friend when they're going to their trust and estate attorney, because I've created a program you can bring to them so they know what you want to do with your pets. And I've created a program that helps you decide and understand what you want to do with your pets. So look for the link for the MAP program starting again, probably in February or March. I've had so much on my plate. So until next time, this is Deborah Hamilton. Go kiss your pets for me. Thanks so much. Please take the time to like and share the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and give us 5 stars if you think we're doing a good job. It does such a great job rising our numbers and making sure people can find us, because as you know, people are in conflict over animals. So if they're able to find the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, they will be able to hear the information that I give here and also find me. So please like and share and give us a 5-star review. It's greatly appreciated on any of your podcast platforms that you listen to. Thanks so much.